A staggering headline emerged the moment word got out that Sabrina Ionescu had signed a historic deal with the ambitious Unrivaled league, leaving both fans and critics in complete disbelief. Rumors described this agreement as a groundbreaking opportunity that would change women's basketball forever. Yet under the bright lights of promotional events and lavish paychecks, a more complicated story began to unfold. A narrative involving missed games, overarching brand commitments, and questions about how serious some participants truly were about competing. By the time people pieced together the different angles, a single conclusion was clear. Something about this arrangement felt both revolutionary and problematic, hinting at consequences that would ripple far beyond this season. Sabrina, revered for her collegiate exploits and lauded as one of the most promising figures in professional basketball, became a magnet for interest from leagues eager to showcase top-tier skill. Her signature style on the court and her charismatic confidence off it consistently placed her in the spotlight. Whenever she ran the floor, spectators tuned in to witness the kind of precision passing and long-range marksmanship that had turned her into a household name. Brands lined up to collaborate with her, showering her with endorsement deals and shoe collaborations. Giant sponsors saw her as the living embodiment of a modern sports figure, someone capable of wielding influence both on social platforms and in the real world. Given that pedigree, Unrivaled officials believed securing her would be the league's ticket to a roaring launch. Unrivaled stepped onto the scene promising a fresh approach to women's basketball. The organization outlined a grand vision: shorter seasons that minimized athlete burnout, bigger salaries to attract marquee names, and media coverage designed to spark unprecedented hype. By encouraging players to bring their personalities and flair to the forefront, the league made it clear it wasn't content with ordinary. Behind closed doors, executives boasted about an environment where the greatest talents could thrive, playing with unrestrained creativity. Early announcements caused a buzz that spread through fan communities, generating widespread discussions about how this league might transform professional women's sports. However, the cracks in this idealistic foundation began to show sooner than expected. Whispers circulated that certain individuals signed contracts predominantly to cement their status, not to push themselves on the court. Observers complained that a handful of roster spots were filled by stars who seemed more focused on networking, casual workouts, or personal brand expansions than actually driving their teams to victory. This evolving situation raised skepticism about whether Unrivaled's energetic marketing could match the reality. Detractors questioned if the project was more of a promotional stunt than a genuine sporting revolution. Nothing fueled that skepticism more than the magnitude of Sabrina's lucrative deal. Reports suggested she had negotiated the highest salary in the entire league, setting a record that overshadowed her peers. Fans initially rejoiced at the news, interpreting it as a symbol of progress for women's sports. Finally, an elite player was receiving payment that reflected her cultural and athletic impact. Yet the elation started dissolving once people realized how rarely she actually stepped onto the court. She missed multiple games for off-court obligations, including high-profile appearances and brand commitments that her contract evidently permitted. While her absences were presumably scheduled, the unflattering optics stirred heated debate over whether Unrivaled had, in fact, oversold the dream. As the season progressed, it became apparent this was no regular arrangement. While Sabrina occasionally dazzled spectators with her trademark moves, she was also jetting off for sneaker tours, photo ops, and media engagements. Puzzled fans asked why the league would tolerate its biggest earner being a part-time participant. After all, the entire premise of Unrivaled was to foster high-level competition that would elevate the sport's profile. Insiders hinted that executives had knowingly agreed to flexible scheduling in order to secure Sabrina's star power at any cost. Unfortunately, that choice began feeding a narrative that the league was more concerned with headlines than results. The notion of vacation mode started surfacing among critics when it became obvious that Sabrina wasn't alone. Observers noted how some players treated their presence in Unrivaled like a paid off-season retreat rather than an intense proving ground. Certain athletes showed minimal hustle, seemed indifferent in practices, or simply went through the motions. Online chatter described squads that appeared loosely bonded, more focused on fraternizing or visiting exotic locations than dominating matchups. Rumors swirled about individuals who took advantage of the league's relaxed structure by designing schedules that fit around personal agendas. These anecdotes eroded Unrivaled's credibility, casting doubt on whether it truly aspired to be a serious competitor in the sporting world. Such casual attitudes clashed with the aspirations of more dedicated players who wanted real stakes and a robust level of play. A handful of professionals toiled hard, hoping their efforts would gain notice in a new environment that promised to redefine women's basketball. They put in long hours of intense workouts, studied strategies to elevate team chemistry, and poured their hearts into delivering competitive showdowns. Their frustration mounted when they realized others were content to coast, especially since contract details varied widely and certain star names reaped enormous paychecks. How could an elite league flourish if some participants treated it as a novelty, while others yearned for authentic battles? This swirling discontent reached its peak when questions about the one-on-one competition emerged. Fans had anticipated seeing Sabrina participate in that marquee event, which organizers had hyped as a fierce showdown featuring the best talent going head-to-head. When she bowed out due to prior commitments, murmurs about money grabs and minimal obligations grew louder. Video clips of her brand-related appearances began circulating, further fueling the perception that she had finessed an arrangement to suit her schedule. The excitement surrounding her presence gave way to anger over her apparent lack of interest in fulfilling the league's central goals. Now the implications of this saga are becoming impossible to ignore. Rising stars like Angel Reese, who might consider joining Unrivaled, have clearly noticed the flexibility Sabrina enjoyed. If the league fails to address the precedent set by lavish salaries for part-time contributions, other newcomers could be motivated to negotiate similar deals. Such an approach might spell short-term star power, but could also imperil the league's legitimacy. If new participants sense an opportunity to cash in without committing to rigorous training and fan engagement, the entire structure of Unrivaled could fracture under the weight of unmet expectations. Discussions about fairness and competition abound. Observers point out that Unrivaled risks becoming an optional side quest for high-profile players seeking to enhance personal brands or maintain off-season conditioning. In that scenario, passionate young talent might suffer, losing valuable opportunities to prove themselves against the best. The ripple effects would extend to fan excitement as well. Devoted viewers want authentic showdowns, not half-hearted displays, and might eventually withdraw their support if they sense a lack of earnest competition. Sponsors could also begin to question whether continuing to invest large sums makes sense, particularly if the league's top headliners appear more invested in external projects than performing at their peak. It's not as though fans begrudge elite athletes for maximizing their income. The broader conversation acknowledges that top players often shoulder enormous pressure to secure their financial futures in a sports landscape that historically undervalued women's accomplishments. However, there's a distinct difference between maximizing earnings while still engaging with the competition and exploiting a system that seems desperate for high-profile signings. Once the line blurs, the integrity of the league comes under scrutiny, leading to a debate over whether it stands for a genuine leap forward in women's basketball or a superficial platform that looks good on paper. Hindsight suggests that Unrivaled's leadership was caught in a bind from the beginning. Executives wanted influential names, realized Sabrina had global appeal, and offered her massive sums to bolster marketing campaigns. Yet the league appears to have sacrificed consistent on-court presence in exchange for star power, creating a mixed message about what it truly values. Unrivaled may have harnessed temporary attention through splashy announcements and highlight reels, but the long-term ramifications could damage its reputation if prominent figures treat the competition like a casual playground. Only time will tell if the league can adjust its policies to attract devoted athletes who embrace every game with the gravity and urgency fans crave. Critics argue that there's still a chance for Unrivaled to turn this narrative around, though it would require stricter guidelines, clearer expectations, and a public commitment to competitive integrity. Players who sign part-time contracts might be subject to stringent requirements that ensure meaningful participation and accountability. Alternatively, the league can fine-tune the balance between star signings and mid-level professionals who actually want to shine on a big stage. Such reforms won't happen overnight, but a recalibration might keep Unrivaled from devolving into a series of publicity stunts that fade when reality sets in. Today, fans are left contemplating whether Sabrina's arrangement represents a sign of progress or the seeds of a deeper problem. Is it empowering that a women's basketball star has enough leverage to command monumental pay and remain choosy with her schedule? Or does it signal a troubling shift toward placing spectacle over real competition? Nobody can deny the controversy has ignited conversations about player autonomy, league responsibility, and the kind of entertainment modern audiences expect. For now, many are simply watching to see if the next wave of high-profile recruits demands the same flexible terms, making the pursuit of serious competition an afterthought. In the end, everyone awaits the conclusion to a story that started with grand ambitions. If Unrivaled learns from this experience, it could refine its contracts to retain the allure of big names while ensuring they show genuine dedication on the court. If it fails, the league may inadvertently open the door to more part-time deals, turning its vision into a hollow promise. Viewers remain intrigued, partly because the entire endeavor still holds the potential to elevate women's basketball to unprecedented heights. Yet as the drama unfolds, the final outcome hinges on whether Unrivaled will assert its authority or continue catering to marquee personalities at the expense of authentic, competitive excellence. Either way, a precedent has been set. The next chapter awaits those brave enough